All right, so we are talking about teaching your kid, going through the reading, okay? And what I did to get some of my kids that were reading rather young, two, and not that you have to have your kid reading before they're two, but it's a lot easier. Some kids, you'll find out that they're having some sensory issues like I talked about earlier, and they are not able to, we need to build up those sensory audio or visual and things like that to be able to get them to be able to read better. So I want to show you what I did all the way from baby all the way up. And I have these, you can scan, these stacks of things in here that I've kept from the last kid so that I can go up, okay? And well, sorry, you don't have to show all the bookshelves that are everywhere. And ignore that bookshelf over there. So, when we go, will you stop? Alex, please. My husband's now filming. All right. As a baby, I do like, and like I said, NACD, they don't like it as much, but I do like, probably because I'm always dealing with other kids, so I don't have just a baby or a toddler. But if you just have one kid that's different, or if your oldest kid is the one who's learning to read, that maybe you can spend more time and not have to have other things that the child is doing that you can maybe focus on. So the first thing, what we do is we're going to have high intensity words. We don't start with, I start with my other kids doing the phonics, and I know I said this before in videos. My first one could pick that up, and the second one couldn't blend the words, and understanding later on, this is 6 kids later, understanding the whole way the brain worked and the way we learn words. It wasn't because we sounded all of them out. It was because we visually memorized. And when they got to the point where they could sound it out and they're like, oh yeah, that's what it is. And we also memorize what words sound like, meaning not how they sound out. And we get to a point, remember, where when we learn their English language that we actually we have to tell them, okay, forget about that rule that CH says ch, because now it says ka, and forget about that it's going to say oh, this one's going to say ow, because right now it's going to say ooh, or it's going to say oh, all of the rules change. And so they just need to start visually remembering the words. So it was hard because in the beginning they told me, I don't want you to have them sounded out at all. I just want you to flash high intensity words. So in the very beginning, I'm going to use my, I'll just use with the baby. In the very beginning, I started, because you might not have kids like my 9th child who was learning backwards. I started with Baby Can Read. Only reason why is because they already had flashcards written, and I could use them. You don't have to use these flashcards, but I like that they're already written. And I guess that's actually called, I think it's Your Baby Can Read or Your Child Can Learn, things like that. If you look up, it should come up. And they come with these videos that they can watch. So when my kids were doing other things, I could have the baby watching these videos. And they really did pick up these words. And it went through the same philosophy that NACD had, which was flashing the words to them as fast as it can. So the younger they are, you're not actually going slow, and you're trying to find high-intensity words. And the nice thing about the Baby Can Learn words is they're all things like teeth, drums, kicking, balls, happy, So you want to pick words first that your baby might know. Even names. Mommy, daddy, arm, nose, ears, things like that, And so what you start with the youngest one, and you even do sequencing when they're little, like I showed the sequencing, hopefully you already watched the sequencing video. If you have your baby reading 1 or 2 or can do a sequencing of 2 or 3 or something like that, and maybe they can't because they can't speak, they're barely speaking, I'm still flashing and getting them to say it. And usually by 2 they can speak. So this is how I would flash it, okay? I'm going to flash it backwards, even though there's words back here, so ignore it, pretend. And a lot of people like to use 3x5 cards, which is most of my cards are all 3x5. But with a baby, usually they're sitting in your lap, okay? And I'll have my husband go backwards. So imagine my baby is in my lap, and I'm going to go water, hat, foot, play, chin, water. Good job. Let's shuffle the cards. Notice I only got 5 cards. Ready? Play, chin, hat, foot, water. Okay? Now I'm wanting the baby to say it with me. okay, and I don't want to go. I don't want to go slow. But anytime he does something I want or she does something I want, I'm going to get really excited. So let's say I go, okay, say foot, foot. Good job. Play. Good job. I'm really going to get excited if they ever copy what I want them to do. Okay, well, chin. Good job. Water. Hat. Okay. What we do is we're going to flash it 3 times, and then we're going to say, what does this word say? Sometimes babies can't say the word yet, or they can say the word and they don't want it. They might just say whatever, or they don't. I will literally, like with my 8th child, I swear, like the first time I flashed it, the 3rd time he knew all the words. That's how high his visual was, okay? But sometimes you have to say, okay, which one says hat? And let's say the baby points to this one. No, this is hat. Okay, say hat. Touch the hat. Punch the hat. Okay, here's the hat. Hat's over here. Hat's over here. And I put hat in the back. And then I might go. Now, if you can get them to say, what does this say? And if he says the word, let's say they say the word foot. Good job. I'm going to put the word down. Okay. What does this word say? If he doesn't say the word, I'm going to be like, okay, which one says water? Okay. Sometimes I'll go all the way up to 3. All right. But you'll know by what level and how young your baby is. All right. But you're still going to flash. You're going to take about 10 words and 10 words total per week. So right here I have 5, and on the back I have 5. So you start with 5 on one side, and you get all through that until the baby gets them all right, which means if I have to have them point to the word, okay, good job, that's foot, and I put it down, and then we go through it, and I might have to flash it again. Water, play, chin, hat, shuffle the cards, play, hat. And they might try to grab it, and you might even have them grab hat. Good, they say it. And sometimes my baby will throw it on the ground. Chin, good. Water, good. Play, they're saying it. We're giving me attention. Sometimes I have to throw it down on the floor in front of them to get attention. You have to remember if they're sequencing at a 1 or 2, you have to remember how much they're remembering that short period of time. And so that's why you have to stick to less words, okay? Sometimes I get down to where I'm only flashing 3 words over and over, and then what does this say? And if they can say it, if not, sometimes I'm putting them on the ground, and I'm saying, which one says play? And then I've had my son go step on the words. Even before he could speak, he'd go step on all the words. We literally could put 20 words out, and he could go to any of them and step on the words, and he was like 2. But what it takes is in the beginning, you're flashing all the words to them, and you do not pass them off. If you say which one says water and he says this one, and you go, no, this is water. Say water. Good job, water. Touch the water. Water's up here. And I put it in the back. Okay, I'm going to come back to water. Which one says play? And let's say they point to play. Good job. This is play. Yay. Even if they accidentally got it, what ends up happening is that's all input, 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 input. I'm going to chin, hat, water. Hat, water, chin, water, chin, water, chin, water. Hat has to be high intensity, okay? All right, which one says hat? Good job, okay? And honestly, when my daughter used to do that, I'd hear her scream, yay! As soon as your baby gets like one right, I swear, it's like the first time you potty train a kid, and all you have to do is scream, and that kid is potty trained, because they just figured out how much attention they get for doing the right thing. So it has to be high intensity. In the beginning, it might be frustrating. Like, oh my gosh, they don't even want to pay attention. You might find out that your kid's at a 3, which is a sequencing level of 3, which is when they don't want to do it unless you're really excited, and they will do it. Which means sometimes I have to throw the cards on the floor. Water, chin, hat, play, foot. Good job. Okay, ready? You throw it. Say hat. Good, hat. Let's do it. Chin, water, foot, play. Good job. Let's shuffle the cards. Okay. All right. And they're like, might be trying to grab at it. Okay, which one says play? Go get play. Oh, no, that says foot. That's foot. Let's get play. This is play. Can you touch the play? And I put it in the back, and I put a new one down. Okay? I don't ever put it away. So I put it in the back telling me he hasn't passed this one off. And so I keep saying he because my last ones are all boys. Same thing. I'm going to go, which one says hat? And he picks this one. Good job! I'm going to put that away because he got it right. And I'm going to keep going through it until I get all 5 right. And then I'm going to do the other side. Okay? And I'm going to get 10. And those are going to be the cards you work on the first week. Okay? Until they have them down. Until they have about 70 or 80% down. Then you're going to introduce new cards. All right? So what ends up happening is it depends on the intensity of it. If you are doing boring and you're going really slow, a baby actually you need to go extremely fast. They are picking up so much stuff. And they're picking most of it up visual that you don't even realize how much they can read. So you start with that, and then what ends up happening is they're going to learn a group of 10 words. So I used to have a stack this thick that I would flash to my daughter who's now 12, and she was also reading before she's 2. And all 100 she could read. And it started with she got 10, and then I put my 10 review cards over here, and I picked 10 more. And like I said, I like the baby can read because they focus on level 1, and they have a video that goes through it, and all the cards that are from level 1 are from the video from level 1. So they're watching the elephant push and hands up and clap and things like that. But it gives you a set of cards to go, and then when your kid gets ready, you can start doing more than... You can flash more than 10 to them, and you can get them up higher. But in the beginning, you might only be able to flash 3 at a time, and then check those and stuff like that. So the goal is we do 10, even if you have to flash 3 at a time till you get through all 10, or you can flash 5. You want to get it to the point where they're actually able, they're getting them right, okay? And you keep those 10, and what I found, like I said, if you can't do this, make up words. But you need words to be high-intensity words. High-intensity words are all the names of the family. I promise a baby will literally, like my baby knows his name. Well, he should already know how to read, but I haven't been able to focus on him because I'm focusing on everyone else. And that sometimes happens. You sometimes are like, I'm focusing on 4 kids. I can't do that kid yet. And I had that happen the last year. And I had to then, when I finally was able to get to it, because my husband and my daughter were working with him, my last son, not the baby, the 9th one, I was having everyone else have to do this easy stuff with him. And then I got to work on it with this year. But then, like, if you watch my math video, I jumped him up. He was able to go so quick because he's already been I already knew he was doing sequencing with my husband. He was doing all these things to build up. So even if he wasn't doing the reading thing yet, I knew I could pop him up faster, okay, and quicker. And sometimes, like I said, they have sensory things that are keeping them from doing that. So what ends up happening is this. You start, I like this thing here, okay, and I have all these 3x5 cards because what ended up happening is these are books. Chucky Visits the Doctor. And they're all the words that go with that book. I would start picking out books. Once they got through some basic words, I would pick out, and I used to do with my other son, but I didn't do with this 9th one because he had a hard time with visual. So if you go to, and this worked for all my other kids, if you go through phonics books and you do not sound it out, and they are not high in visual, and most kids are all high in visual, and I flash the words, which look how many words are in here. There's like 4, okay? And then they get to read the book afterwards. Sometimes this totally works, even though Pam and hat and bag, luckily Sam and Pam kind of rhyme. The problem if they're not high in visual, it's very hard if a lot of the words are similar, okay? But if I flash the words and they get it down and then they get to read a book, all of my other kids this worked for. So this might be let's say this was the new book. Each week you're getting a new set of words, okay? And so where this would be the new book, I would pull the review books out and I would flash the words for all of them until the words were right and they'd get to read those books, let's say. And gradually got to the point where all of, and I'm hoping this makes sense. So all I was doing was instead of making up words, we're pulling words from here. If you find that you're pulling words from these phonics books, which was easier because I didn't have to make up words or find them, and your kid's not getting them down, you need to check their audio and visual, and you'll find out that maybe their visual is very low. We need to work on visual, and then we can start picking these books. So in the very beginning with my son, I literally made up books. I made up books that said, because I went to the evaluator at NAC, and I said, he can't read, and I don't know why, and all the rest of my kids will read it too, and I brought him in at 4, and they were like, okay, just because he's not in college at his age. They joke because I have high expectations for all the kids that I should be able to jump them, and I was very upset because I was like, yes, but I had an autistic kid that I had to wrestle for 8 years, and I don't want to have this. And even though Kendra wasn't at all like this, it was still hard for me because he wasn't learning. Everything I did with the other kids that they made him learn like that, he wasn't picking that up when it came to the reading, and that was frustrating because the reading is the part where as soon as they get really good at reading, you can make them more independent in doing things and checking them. So what ends up happening, like I said, is you have one set of review cards. Some of the kids can do 20 words at a time. Okay, so my older kids would be doing 20. And you might think, why would older kids be doing it? Because there are a whole bunch of words that older kids do not know how to read. And I would literally, whether it be search through scriptures or look online for like really hard words, and I'd write them all down. And then what happens is I would have a new set of cards, and then they wouldn't be going through books. You know, that's what's fun for younger kids. They'd have a new set of cards, and then this whole bucket is full of review cards. So each one of these once were their new week. And I would number it like 54, and the next one would be 55. And then what happens is these are all mixed up now. So each day I would pick three review, and I would have their new cards. And the new cards they would do all week. And then the review cards would be, so their new cards, same thing. I'm going to literally flash it. And I'm going to flash it to them. They're sitting right next to me. If they're sitting in front of me, I'm going to flip it upside down and go, sorbet. And it's hard if I'm reading it and I can't read it. Cologne. I have to flip it the other way because I can't read them upside down right now. Sometimes when they're more complicated words, not that those are complicated words, but they're not as basic. They're sitting right next to me. I'm going to make sure it's in front of their face. Cologne, sorbet, Thailand, gourmet, canoe, sweet, tsunami, explanation, argument, evacuees. Okay, so I'm going quick and they're repeating it with me, all right? What happens is when I'm done, and these are a lot of words, a big stack of words, okay? You might have a kid who, the first time he gets this, they're like, I don't even know this word. But once they've heard evacuees, pediatrician, influence, in the beginning, they might get like 5 right because they've never seen that word, let's pretend. It doesn't matter. As soon as you get those right, you put it down. Because the next week, if this is their new cards, let's say, not the review, as soon as they get those, the very next day that they do that, they're going to already have other ones remembered because you're going to keep doing it. Every time they get it wrong, you're going to say it and put it in the back. You're not going to let them sound it out. Superficial. You want them to see it because we don't sound out words anymore. I know we think we need it, and this was so backwards to me, okay? So, again, I know this seems overwhelming, but it just starts with one set of cards that then becomes, so these are kids that are, that have already gone through all, like they don't even do this anymore. Now they're just doing these review cards. And even sometimes my husband's obviously forgetting to get the review cards, and they're reading books and they're listening to books on tape. So let me go through the whole process now that I've explained the grabbing anew. You're going to take your kid very slowly and consistency. Even in the beginning, if it feels like they're not getting it, it's something that you probably missed from watching my video, so watch it again. Okay, meaning maybe I had someone doing this and they were flashing their kids 3 times and they forgot the 3rd time to say, what does this say? They just flashed it and told them the answer. And I was like, you can't do that. You have to, the 3rd time you need to actually say, what does this say? And whatever they get wrong, you have to actually have them think in their mind and find that word. If they get it wrong, you have to put it in the back. Do not let them sound it out. You literally say the word and put it in the back. Say the word and put it in the back. Say the word and put it in the back. Okay? In the very beginning, when I have younger kids, sometimes I've gone through and they've already can read some words. So what ended up happening with, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, what ended up happening with my son that is now 9, who was reading at like a 5th grade level at 4, he was like my fastest reader. I couldn't believe, everything we gave him like instantly, like the first 10, he got them. Like the first time I tried with him, he just got them all. But he's really high visual, okay? So what ended up happening with him is, I ended up going through all these books. You have your first week where you have, like I said, 10, and you're always doing one new that you keep all week, and then every day you're grabbing, you're basically rotating it. So the way it worked for me, it worked best like this. Like you can see I have his name written on here, Avon. Is you have your stack of books, and you will pull something like, the last book I did was down here, and I'm always going to put the new book in the front. So I have the new book, and then I would pull 3 from the back. And then when I did them, I'd put them back here in the front. So what ended up happening, is gradually they read through all of those books, and he started with these books, and then he went to those books, and then these became more complicated level books, and then finally I didn't need to give him any of these because he could. He could go through all of this. And so again, all that happened was I would always start, like I said, where there was an envelope that they had that would say new on it, and that my husband knew if he was going through books with them that those were the new set of cards. Okay, and I usually have my husband do one time, and then I would do one time, and I even sometimes have my daughter do one time. So they had 3 times that they had someone doing this. So if you have anyone older that you can say, go through their books with them, and which means they're going to first pull out their new. So with like Kender, this bag is so ripped. His new cards, his book is I Won't. So I will start with that. And because he's already almost gone through it, sometimes I don't even start with flashing. Sometimes if it's not brand new, I'll just take out the ones I already know he knows. And I'll go through and I'll say, what does that say? Song. And like if he doesn't know song, nope, song, put it in the back. And let's say out of it, he knows 5. I right away put it down. Okay, that's what I do once. And the first time he reads it, I don't. First time I go through it and I literally will keep flashing it. I'll keep shuffling it and saying it again, meaning if I can take 3 words out, he gets right. I will take the leftover words and shuffle them. If I have to break it into groups halfway and flash these ones until he gets it right, and then take the other half, if that makes any sense whatsoever. What that looks like is, meaning if this is his brand new words and I flash him all of these and he's not getting any of them right, I will go down to like half and I'll flash it where I go through it. Draw, show, watch, and he's saying it with me. Scary, story, make. I also make sure he's looking at it and not just saying it, which is why I have it right and he has right in front of me. I've had kids who literally have to sit in my lap and I have it in their face. Make. I won't. Sorry, that was the name of the book. Won't. Song. Because I know, because I've had kids who look around too much. I had to do this with my autistic son. He had to sit in my lap because his eyes would go too many places. Draw. And I would do it. Show. Watch. Scary. Story. And then after we shuffle them, like I said, and I've done it 3 times. The 3rd time I'm going to be doing, what does this say? Okay? And if he gets it right, I put it down. If he gets it wrong, and I don't, I'll just go, nope, it says this, okay? Already mix these up. So once he gets all those right, then I would do the other half, all right? If your kid, even 10 is too much for the first time he does the words, then I would break it down. If for some reason you have way too many cards, sometimes you need to, your book is too high, meaning the level of the book and how many words are in there are too high. You need to go down. If your kid can't get him because there's too many words, but Kender, like I said, can get him now with 20. That he can go through these. So I might have to break it up the first time, but then when he goes through the book with his dad or with his sister, where they're flashing him the cards and whatever he gets wrong, they put in the back. Whatever he gets right, they put down until he gets through all of them. Even like I said, if you have to keep going, okay, which means if I get to the point where I'm saying and he's still not knowing it, once I've come back, I'll then shuffle and just start saying them to him again. Make this, that, and then I'll go through it again and maybe get 2 out of it. And that just happens in the beginning and hopefully that made sense to you guys. Where no matter what, you don't put it down until he gets it right. You keep telling it, you don't let him sound it out, and you put it down. Okay, so that will be his new set of cards. And then what happens is he's got another bucket that's his that I have, kind of like this is. I have all the books that he's already gone through and passed off and the words he's passed off. And what with him, because he had a harder time reading, all those book words are in here. And so normally if your kid is fine and they are doing really well and they're picking them up really well, I'm just going to be I have him in something like that where I'm pulling the book, I'm finding the word, and I wouldn't put it for my husband. I would pull the words out for him. Sometimes people like to just get the next book like this and then stick it in the back knowing that they did that book. Now they're going to do the next 3 books here, if that makes sense. And that's an easier way for them to remember. But with Kender, because he was having a hard time, this is how we did it. I would take a stack like that, and this is his review. So instead of 3 books of review, I would do a mixture of all of the books that he's done, and then I would just pull out 3 books that he's already read, because he can literally instantly remember the whole story. His audio is so big that even if he doesn't know the words, he literally remembers the whole story after you read it one time, and it looks like he can read anything. But it's just that he's memorized the story because it's audio. So that should tell you something about audio. When kids are reading, and they're really good readers, but they're not big audio, they don't remember anything that they just read. And in fact, half the time when he gets his words, he does this. He stops and he thinks, and he's telling himself the story. And he finds the word by telling himself his story in his head. He's flashing, and you would think that's visual, but it's actually, it's more audio than visual, because he's hearing the story, and he gets to the part, and then the visual flashes in for him that's the word. And you literally can see him working that out through his brain. And it's not, and you think, oh, he can't. Okay, so understanding these things. So I pull this out, and this is how I do these cards. So it's a little bit thicker. These are all review. I right away just ask them what they are. And so I've got this a little bit that it can widen out. I go, what does this say? And if he goes, I just go through it fast. And if he says watch, I put it in the back. That means he knows it. I don't know it. He'll just go, I don't know it. Want. And I stick it back here. And so every time he gets one right, I stick it in the very beginning of this, I stick it way in the back. Like if he knows it instantly, these are his review words, remember, that he's already passed off, and I don't pass them off. Like let's say he had 10 words or 15 words. I don't pass the book off unless he only has 2 words that he doesn't know. And then those 2 words I put in the front of here. And believe me, he'll keep getting them until he gets them right. So, but let's say all of these ones go to the back. Okay, I'm going to actually put them in the front because he needs to do school tomorrow. So what ends up happening is, so these are the words, let's say, that he forgot. He needs to be reminded. But now I go back, and I've already told him what they were. You'll find that now he'll remember some of them. I'm not going to stick him in the back. If he got them wrong one time, I'm sticking him in the front. I'm still going to put him in the back until he gets it right. Idea, if he says, that's there. Oh, good. You got it down. I don't know what that is. We'll say loved. I'll put it in the back. Back. I'll put it here. If he doesn't know it, I put it in the back, and I tell him what it is, and he knows it. I put it back in the front. So whatever he doesn't know, I stick it back in the front so that the next person who goes through cards with him is going to do those cards again. And if he gets it right, they'll be put in the back. Okay. What ends up happening is, because he's having a harder time remembering it because of his sequencing of his visual. All right, visually looking at that word and seeing it. He remembered when he was reading, and then I just go to him reading the books. These are the review books. Normally, a more advanced child who has a higher visual, I'm going to just do the words, and then he gets to read the book for fun. Because you will find that a kid will visually see the words, and then sometimes in the book, they aren't remembering it as well. You're pointing to them, and they might forget it, and it kind of tells where they are. When he's done with those, I'm going to stick those in the back of his bucket and pull the next new ones out. And he's still going to have his new book, which his new book was I Won't. His new book will stay in there. And the review books will go back. Okay? So, if that makes any sense whatsoever, I'm going to keep those in because that's for him for tomorrow. All right, so what ends up happening is you run out of books. So you can start getting things like... I like these. Now, like I said, if you want to go through the sequencing books, it doesn't mean you can't teach them the sounding out and things like that. It means you don't want them to sound it out. When you are flashing the words to them, you do not want to sound it out. But when you are reading the book, there's nothing wrong with talking to them a little bit about the concept of it. Okay, I don't know why I can't get this book back in. I'll do it later. There's no concept to this one, but obviously, like with the silent E, a lot of it has to do with. Sorry, it's because there's a CD in here. It has to do with Sorry, a little bit neurotic. It has to do. Oh, my brain died all of a sudden. Doesn't matter. We'll just go to the next ones. These are all level 1 reading books, but in high intensity words, meaning they're not Sam and things like that. And what I mean by the phonics is you might think they're never learned how to sound things out. It's actually not true. The one I told you about that was 5th grade reading level and zoomed through all these books. He first learned how to read, and then he memorized the order of them. His brain was memorizing that he figured out he would start saying "b" with things that started with B. And he didn't know what the letter B was. I wasn't flashing him letters like I do with Kendra, because most kids pick that up from Sesame Street, and Kendra hadn't picked that up. Kendra, again, remembers my 9th one that learns backwards. So what ended up happening is it was amazing the way the brain worked. He first read the word, then he started connecting words that the first time he'd look at him and I'd pass it to him, he would accidentally say another word that either rhymed with it or it started with it. So he was already teaching himself that the book and look, if he had learned book and he saw look, he'd go book. And this is like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old teaching himself that. And then he started going through and teaching himself. Then he started getting all the sounds right. And then he taught himself, and literally the brain then taught himself the letters and the sounds that they make. And he could read. And it was funny because I remember taking him to church, and they had this 4-year-old sitting next to him. And they had this whole primary program, which was a children's program, music, and all the words for the little kids to say. And he's sitting next to the teacher and reading all of them. And she's like, what the heck? Because already my kids look like they're midgets. He's 9, he looks like he's 6. And so it was like this kid could read all the words.
It's little person.
This little...
You say little people. We don't say midgets.
Alex. So what ends up happening is you can get level 1 books. I love the Mercer Meyer books. You can look at a book and you can go pick them up at Half Books. I would start getting higher level ones that were fun and interesting and getting the words out of there. And then the whole key was once some of the books became too easy that they could read all those words, those weren't their review words anymore. I went to ones, this is ultimately the last stack we went through before they were done, really with books. And then after that, like I said, my husband would just review and I'd find really, really hard words to stick in here. And each time he does it, he's supposed to pull. And I'll go through it, or he will go through it, so that at least they're getting it twice, or maybe even 3 times if you have an older kid. Okay, so that hopefully makes sense with the whole reading thing and how fast you can get them going, and the way the brain actually works. If they're having a harder time, we need to do the flashing, okay? If you have any questions, again, Marco Polo me, and you can message me and add me to Marco Polo, and I can send you that information, and I can break it down a little bit more. You're like... Because you can just tell me what you're doing and I can say, no, you missed it. You're doing this too much. You're doing that too much. All right. So that is how to advance them in reading.